Hey guys, welcome back to another round of Worlds Daily, and today we will be taking a look at the six teams that have been eliminated in the play-in stage, and we're going to be evaluating the tactics that they have used so far, right? And now let's start things off with Infinity, who went 0-4 in groups. This team they played and they drafted for a scaling team fighting, all entire composition, and it's the usual kind of things that you would see at a collegiate and lower level of play, where people would draft for strong team fighting, they would draft for strong scaling, and then they play for 1-3-1 into a 0-5-0 mostly. Um, However, in the modern game of League of Legends, they didn't bridge for the side lanes. This is all the bad habits that they're doing. They're showing three lanes simultaneously, and even when they're five on mid, they are not decisive enough to defend the mid wave that they're pushing on as well. So unfortunately for Infinity, they showed that they were rather, I would have to say, clueless during the playing stages of Worlds, and my verdict on their tactical gameplay would actually be a failing grade. This is a style of gameplay that you would see at a semi-pro level. Is the type of gameplay you would see in a tier 2 division somewhere in the middle of a table. As for the Unicorns of Love, who finished bottom of the groups as well and didn't get the chance to play in the knockout stage, I would have to say that we are going to be it's a little bit more interesting here because what the Unicorns of Love did was that they kept the same idea, right? So they also dropped the ball scaling team fighting, and this time they played more around mages because of the way that No Man's plays in the mid lane. Well, they individually didn't really shine this time around as compared to last year. I think one of the important things to note is that initially they played the first three games where they went 0-3, playing a 2-1-2 style, and this didn't prove too well to them in a era where a lot of people are overloading the side lanes with three people and four people, or at least going 1-4-0 and attacking the side lane. So their ability to control the side lanes was a problem, and then they transitioned in the game against C9 to a 1-4-0-0-4-1 seesaw, which I thought was a little bit better executed on. So you have to give them a little bit of credit for that. But overall, in terms of their proactive set plays around the neutral objectives, such as with Harrow, and in terms of contesting the neutral objectives, it wasn't the best. And because of how passive they played in general, constantly overloading on mid lane, it resulted in the Unicorns of Love constantly getting the side lanes pushed in for free, as we can see in this example over here, where you would see the Wukong not pressure the Ryze heavily enough, and he would shift mid, giving BYG the ability to push in both top and mid simultaneously. Hmm. So while I like the transition that they had to switch into this 1-4-0 into 0-4-1 seesaw, I can't give them too high a grade, and they get an overall C grade, considering that they did go for an interesting 2-1-2 that didn't really work out for them. And still, this was a decent adaptation to beat C9, and that could poke some holes in one of the teams. We have to see if anybody adopts a similar approach to playing against C9 as well during the group stage itself. So if we were to compare Group A or Group B, which one is stronger, we have seen this already. I would say the Unicorns of Love, they were more tactically apt. Group B takes this 1-0. For the Red Canids, they lost to Peace in the first round of the knockout stages. They play a two-lane seesaw style, so similar to what we saw from Unicorns of Love, but they did it a lot better, as they were able to consistently group and have the three-man unit stack. They were a lot more decisive on the mid wave, and they were willing to take fights a little bit more proactively. Right, this is what I would think is you would see in the team that plays this modern day two-lane style, and I wouldn't really mark them down for missing a lot of opportunities when they had the three-man unit and the potential to collapse on the side lane to extend the lead or to really attack the map. And they had some small errors on their resets, and their lane assignments could be a little bit more optimized as well. But overall, I think that Ray Canids, they played a very simple scaling game. The draft could be a little bit better, the individual execution of their matchups could be better. But tactically speaking, I would have to give them a B here. I can't give them any higher because of their lack of decisiveness, their lack of decisiveness in completing the rotation to the side lane to really create some of the more interesting dynamic tactics that's available in the current meta game. But still, it's not terrible. They aren't losing the game because of the way they deploy and the way that they play the mid game. So tactically, it's a B. It's an average grade for the Red Canids. Now, Galatasaray, the team from the Turkish league, the TCL, they lost to BYG in the first round of knockouts. They played with two styles, right? The first is they went for the 1-3-1 into 0-5-0, similar to what Infinity Esports are doing, and I think that this is something that shows the Korean influence that is very prevalent on the TCL teams, where they like to play as 1-3-1 to 0-5-0, play proactively into that, and then group mid as 5, push into mid wave, and then collapse into another side lane subsequently. And the other thing they did as well is a 1-3-1 into 1-1-3, which is a little bit more modern approach. So there was two ideas over here. And then the way that they're playing the 0-5-0 into 5 0500. The problem was that a lot of times they were behind on the map, still they would chase the play, and their lane assignments was a little bit wrong. As you can see here, Misfortune is stacked together with the Twist of Fate. They didn't really get the 5-man mid, and they didn't really have the approach to go through 5 through bot as well. So this is how Beyond Gaming was able to take multiple objectives against them throughout the entire series. And when they played for the 113, their problem here was that they were not executing on this correctly. When you go for the 113, is you're using this to attack the neutral wave while sneaking a wave on the other side of the map as well. Eventually, you want to shift when you push into plus with the Astro 4 4-man dive on this side of the map. Doggo was able to pick up 2 kills for the side of Beyond Gaming on the Misfortune here of this failed dive from Galatasaray. But overall, the verdict that I have to give them is there's lots of good ideas, so it's definitely not a failing grade. But because of the way that they executed it and the fact that they don't necessarily understand what these structures are trying to achieve, I can't give them anything higher than a C plus. Um, great ideas happening if they were able to clean these things up, understand that this is the application of these tactical structures a little bit better. I think that Galatasaray might even have been able to do damage to teams in the group stage itself. But with the way they were playing, I would say that if you're executing on these tactical ideas, but you're not able to execute accordingly, you end up in these scenarios where you have great ideas but it's wasted potential because you don't get the right rotations, you don't play aggressively enough on your timings. Right. So once again, comparing these two, which is stronger, Group A or Group B? This time, Group A's rate, and surprisingly enough, tactically speaking, I thought that they were better than their counterpart, who eliminated at the same stage as them of Galatasaray. So between Group A and Group B, in terms of the tactical competency for the playing stages, it's currently 1-1. Now down to the tiebreaker, we have Peace going up against their other counterpart, who played which would be Beyond Gaming, right? Who a lot of people had as one of the favorites to immediately make it into groups, borrowing some of the perceived strength from PSG, the number one seed from the PCS region. Now, Peace is one of the teams that plays very aggressively on the two lane style, but they do it in a very interesting manner, right? Where they do the 0-4-1 into 3-0, where you would see Babip split from Elidoric, the jungle split from the support, and they would play in a very particular way. And I'll explain that in a little bit here. Now, if you note what's happening on the map here, right? You would see Leona contesting the mid wave together with the Poppy and the Aphelios, and then they would then shift into the top side of the map, whereas the Lilia would be shadowing the Aatrox to enable him to sneak the way from the bottom side. So while this disconnected jungle and support movement results in a little bit of sloppy movement where they can get collapsed on and you're not necessarily fall strong and you're wasting opportunities where you're slow to defend the silent waves. Like the Yon here, they let him catch an additional wave on site, but yet at the same time they understand the importance of sneaking the wave on the other side of the map. So it kind of like compensates for each other, right? And of course, macro-wise, the fact that the Poppy and the Leona is unnecessarily showing on this mid wave is also a big factor that kind of counts against them as well. But I like the fact that they're thinking about how do we sneak the wave from the weak side of the map, and although they are bridging. So if you notice, there are very clear bridging wards that enable the Aatrox to do this. They're pulling Babip as well to guarantee that the Aatrox can sneak the wave. Not the most optimal, but I like the fact that they're attempting and they understand the importance of sneaking the waves on weak side to create map advantages for yourself. So with that, I will have to give them a overall verdict of the in-game tactics as B plus. I wouldn't say that this gets an A grade just yet because of the trade-offs that they are getting in terms of how they're setting these things up. A lot of small minor movement mistakes, support showing on mid. Babbitt doesn't actually have to be there shadowing the Aatrox most of the time as well. Now let's move on to the counterpart of Beyond Gaming, where they lost to Shelly after the mid laner got suspended due to allegations of him being involved in some gambling activities. Um, they play once again. It's one of the slower teams, right? They play around an 80 carry. They play 1-1 to 0-5-0 and then collapse on one side of the map. But all too often, I think this team overgroups on mid lane a little bit too much, which results in both of their side lanes being pushed in. But what counts for them is that they understand the style really well, right? So it's similar to how Damwon played in last year's World Championship. They will play 1-3-1 into 0-5-0, but Beyond Gaming were very good at being 5 mid at the right time, so this allowed them to be able to contest the initial objectives and take them against Galatasaray in their original best of 5 series. Did not pick Oriana nor Silas. This is the meme right there. And that was the phrase that got Marwan into a whole lot of hot soup. And Overall, tactically, this is very simple, very bland from Beyond Gaming. I don't think they think enough about the side lanes, so I'm not going to give them something too high. But they still execute this very basic strategy at an okay level. I was considering giving them maybe a B minus, but with everything that's happening, I'm gonna be a little bit harsher, C plus for Hishawi, simply because of the number of times they get caught out and they make boneheaded plays on the side lanes as well. Peace versus Beyond Gaming. I think that the grades have shown it earlier. Peace was the better team tactically, and this would give Group A an overall score of 2-1. So despite everybody looking at the initial rosters and saying that Group B, in terms of the non-favorite teams to make it out, a lot of people saying that Group B with a stronger team. Just examining from the tactics that they showed, I would say that Group A showed a little bit more complexity and showed a little bit more coherence in the way they executed out their strategies. Of course, this entire analysis doesn't take into account individual player strength or their ability to be clutch in team fights. And that's it for today's round of tactics explained as we wrapped up the group stages. Tomorrow, as we wrap up the group stages of play-ins, tomorrow the group stages for the main event itself will be beginning. I'm personally hyped for the Damwon versus FPX match. Once again, this is Jensen. Get hyped for Worlds.